A wealthy millionaire's disdainful behavior towards a less fortunate family at a prestigious restaurant leads to a shocking revelation. Can affluence justify treating restaurant staff and fellow patrons with contempt? Should staff members be expected to endure such abuse silently? James, the highest-spending patron at the exclusive Dream Palette restaurant in Los Angeles, had crossed a line that would challenge his sense of entitlement. Known for his extravagant demands and arrogant demeanor, James seemed to derive a disturbing pleasure from his superiority. However, the evening was about to take an unexpected turn, delivering a lesson James would remember for the rest of his life. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. James had been a regular at Dream Palette for years, not because of his character, but due to his immense wealth and influence. He was the archetypal individual who believed that money could not only purchase material goods, but also command respect and enforce compliance. However, his latest display of opulence was about to become a pivotal moment. The staff at Dream Palette, long accustomed to tolerating his haughty behavior, had reached their limit. They were prepared to confront James with an unforgettable lesson, one that would shake his very foundation. On a serene Thursday evening, James's arrogance was about to meet its reckoning. The moment he realized the consequences of his actions, a profound sense of unease settled over him. This night, marked by his misjudgments, would become a tale of retribution, ensuring that James would finally receive the attention he had so desperately sought, but for reasons he had never anticipated. Dream Palette, among the numerous establishments James frequented, held a special place in his heart. The restaurant, a paragon of elegance and refinement, consistently topped the lists of prestigious magazines. It was more than just a dining venue, it was a haven of luxury where high society's glamour and ego intersected. James was captivated by the restaurant's ambience, an oasis of indulgence and comfort. Every aspect was meticulously designed to cater to the sensuous plush chairs that enveloped patrons in comfort, sumptuous carpets that added a touch of opulence underfoot, and a bar stocked with the finest spirits promising nights of unparalleled enjoyment. Yet on this particular night, as James basked in his usual sense of superiority, he was about to encounter an unprecedented challenge. The staff, empowered by their collective resolve and a desire to stand up against his arrogance, were ready to deliver a message that James could neither ignore nor dismiss. This was not just another evening, it was a moment of reckoning for a man who had long believed that his wealth could shield him from the consequences of his behavior. The restaurant's ambience was nothing short of extraordinary, with walls that were themselves a visual feast. Each wall was adorned with stunning artwork, meticulously chosen to encapsulate both beauty and sophistication, creating an atmosphere that was both awe-inspiring and inviting. The staff, trained to perfection, moved with grace and efficiency, which was a testament to their professionalism and dedication. The menu, a true culinary masterpiece, was crafted by some of the most renowned chefs in the industry, each dish a testament to their mastery in creating flavors that delighted the most discerning palates. In this gastronomic haven, James felt a profound sense of belonging, more than simply welcome. While the restaurant prided itself on offering first-class treatment to all its patrons, James was convinced that his frequent and lavish spending entitled him to a level of service that was distinctly superior. In his view, the substantial sums he spent not only afforded him extraordinary culinary experiences, but also placed him on a pedestal above other diners, enhancing his sense of superiority and entitlement. James's visits to the restaurant were a regular affair, each one an event marked by his display of preference and privilege. His routine visits several times a week were accompanied by a spectacle of indulgence. The waitstaff, always attentive, ensured that his preferred table was reserved, and if it happened to be occupied, they did not hesitate to rearrange the seating to accommodate him. James's presence was so commanding that he was treated like royalty, a level of courtesy he attributed to the generous tips he left behind. With an air of grandiosity that never went unnoticed, James made a point of being the center of attention during his visits. He and his guests were consistently prioritized, regardless of who else might be dining. His boisterous demeanor and abrasive behavior towards fellow patrons were his trademarks, contributing to an atmosphere of discomfort and dissatisfaction among the other guests. His confidence, bordering on arrogance, was coupled with a blatant disregard for the impact of his actions on others. James saw himself as deserving of special treatment, an attitude that began to alienate other patrons, driving them away from the establishment. For James, professing his admiration for the restaurant was synonymous with expecting indulgent treatment. He anticipated complimentary drinks flowing freely for himself and his guests, elaborate 5-course meals preceded by delectable appetizers, and a grand finale of lavish tipping. He believed that his financial contributions could somehow mitigate the memory of his rudeness and unpleasant behavior. Enveloped in the luxurious ambience of the renowned restaurant, the staff and manager, lured by the prospect of generous tips, rarely confronted James, even when his behavior became egregiously unpleasant. Despite the irritation he caused, the fear of job loss kept many employees in a state of uneasy silence. Then came that fateful day, which would mark a significant turning point. James, known for his arrogance and entitlement, chose to target his disdain at some unsuspecting patrons who were simply there to enjoy the local cuisine. It was a peculiar Thursday evening when James, accompanied by a group of inebriated friends, arrived at the restaurant around 10:30 p.m. With an air of ostentatious celebration, he announced to the waitstaff that he had a special occasion to celebrate. He demanded the most exclusive dishes from the menu, despite the kitchen's impending closure. The chefs, caught between resignation and a sense of duty, reluctantly began to prepare James's extravagant order, setting the stage for a night that would prove unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. The restaurant's atmosphere was rich with the warmth and comfort of a typical evening out, with families scattered throughout the space, savoring their meals and basking in the tranquility of the setting. Most patrons seemed content, sharing gentle laughter and the camaraderie of family life as they relished the last moments of their dining experience. However, one family stood out in their understated elegance and quiet grace. Dressed modestly, they radiated a deep, unspoken connection that spoke volumes of their shared appreciation for the simple joys of being together. They awaited their main course, which had just arrived, with a serene patience that contrasted sharply with the growing disturbance around them. This peaceful scene was abruptly shattered by the entrance of James and his entourage. His imposing presence and the raucous energy of his group swiftly disrupted the restaurant's ambience. Their loud voices and boisterous laughter filled the space, pushing the earlier calm into a distant memory. One by one, other diners began to depart, their enjoyment marred by the intrusion, leaving the once bustling restaurant increasingly deserted. If you are still watching this video and find these stories useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. It wasn't long before James succeeded in his unspoken aim of clearing the restaurant, transforming it into a private domain for his group, a temporary kingdom where they ruled supreme, undisturbed by the outside world. Yet, amid the dwindling crowd, James's sharp eyes caught sight of one remaining table. The modest family, who had just received their meals and ordered another round of drinks, were still engrossed in their quiet celebration. James's gaze darkened with a malicious intent. A cruel smile curled at his lips as he relished the opportunity to test his ability to unsettle and disrupt this family's peaceful evening. He launched his attack with a series of loud, mocking jokes aimed at his guests, but with the unmistakable intent of being overheard by the family nearby. His words dripped with thinly veiled insults and blatant provocation, each statement carefully crafted to undermine and offend. James questioned, with a scornful edge, how the family could afford to dine in such a refined establishment, implying they must have made a mistake in choosing the restaurant. He targeted their modest attire and the simple dishes they had ordered, casting doubt on their ability to settle the bill with a sharp, sarcastic tone. His comments were laden with a venomous delight in belittling and insulting the family, hoping to provoke a reaction. Despite the relentless barrage, the family remained blissfully absorbed in their world. They continued to converse and laugh, their joy and contentment starkly contrasting with James's increasing frustration. Their calm demeanor and continued enjoyment only seemed to fuel his irritation, prompting him to escalate his efforts in a futile bid to disrupt their harmony. James's attempt to mar their evening, however, was met with an impenetrable barrier to their unshakable peace and joy. As the first course was elegantly presented on James's table, an unexpected and dramatic scene began to unfold. With an air of casual indifference, James initiated a provocative game, tossing small morsels of food toward the family seated nearby. The room, already alive with the hum of conversation, was soon filled with a new layer of excitement. The family, swept up in the charged atmosphere James had created, responded with uproarious laughter and lively commentary. The sound of their mirth echoed through the hall, creating an ambience that seemed almost theatrical in its intensity, yet with a sense of foreboding. James, clearly enjoying the spectacle he had set in motion, found himself increasingly unable to manage the situation as it spiraled out of control. His comments, initially lighthearted, took on a sharp edge, becoming more uncomfortable and invasive. The atmosphere, once playful, grew tense as his remarks crossed the line of propriety. The restaurant staff, who had been observing the growing commotion, felt compelled to step in and address the situation. It was a rare and significant moment someone had dared to challenge James, confronting him about his inappropriate behavior. James's reaction to this challenge was immediate and visceral. His surprise and displeasure were evident, a stark contrast to his usual unchallenged demeanor. With a tone laced with arrogance and disdain, he made it clear that he believed those around him were beneath his level of social standing. In his distorted view, his wealth and status elevated him far above others. He derided the notion that the family could afford anything on the menu, convinced they were out of their depth. His tirade of complaints and judgments revealed a deep-seated sense of superiority and entitlement. Amidst the chaos, the family, who had been the target of James's venomous remarks, made a quiet but powerful statement. They placed the money for their meal on the table, a gesture imbued with quiet dignity. They rose from their seats, leaving behind nearly untouched plates, their faces reflecting a mixture of exhaustion and disgust at the treatment they had received. It was a clear, silent testament to their integrity, contrasting sharply with James's arrogance. Despite everything, they had managed to preserve their dignity, a quality that seemed to elude James, despite his material wealth. James, still brimming with a sense of triumph, watched as the family exited the restaurant. He felt a perverse satisfaction, convinced that they were unworthy of the refined environment he so proudly inhabited. His friends, caught up in his euphoria, celebrated what they perceived as a victory. They felt as though they were the true arbiters of the establishment. Yet, as the family made their way to the door, the head of the family perhaps unintentionally met James's gaze for a brief, fleeting moment. In that instant, James experienced a pang of uneasy recognition, a feeling that he couldn't quite place. The family's simple attire stood in stark contrast to James and his entourage, furthering the sense that they were from entirely different social strata. Nevertheless, the feeling of familiarity lingered, unsettling James. Lisa, the waitress who had been attending to James's table throughout the evening, had witnessed the entire ordeal. Despite enduring the harsh comments and blatant disrespect from James's group, she maintained her composure with quiet professionalism. However, her demeanor shifted when James, in a moment of curiosity, inquired about the family's identity. Lisa, her curiosity piqued, delicately interjected with her insights. Though she was not familiar with the family's origins, she had encountered them before, and her knowledge hinted at a surprising twist. The revelation that was about to unfold promised to alter James's understanding of the evening's events in ways he could not have anticipated. After delivering a brief comment, Lisa, the waitress, returned to the bar to prepare another round of drinks for James and his companions. James, left alone with the enigmatic note, found himself engulfed in a swirl of thoughts. The identity of the man whose gaze had struck him as eerily familiar was a puzzle he couldn't solve. An unsettling shiver ran down his spine. Could this man be someone of significant influence? James doubted it after all. Someone of such stature would not dress so inconspicuously. Yet, a nagging feeling suggested that reality might be far different from his assumptions. Lisa moved with a practiced grace around the bar, her movements smooth and efficient as she prepared the drinks. Her demeanor was tinged with an air of secrecy, as though she were orchestrating a clandestine operation. With a quick flick of her wrist, she scribbled something on her notepad, perhaps a secret message, and, employing almost magical dexterity, slipped the note to James in a manner that evaded the notice of everyone else. What could be contained within that seemingly innocuous piece of paper? The note promised to add yet another layer of intrigue to an already mysterious evening. James's mind raced with questions. Why had Lisa chosen to leave him a note so discreetly? What could be so important and confidential that it required such secrecy? The note's presence only intensified his curiosity and unease. He looked at his companions, who were visibly inebriated and still engaged in their revelry, ordering another round of drinks. Despite his best efforts to maintain his previous enthusiasm, his mind was preoccupied, consumed by a growing anxiety. The note's secrecy gnawed at him, making each passing second feel interminable. The urge to uncover its contents became almost unbearable. With a shrewd plan in mind, James decided to use a strategic excuse. He casually informed his group that he needed to use the restroom, a perfect cover for a moment of privacy to explore the mystery. He left the table with a purposeful yet casual stride, clutching the note with a mix of urgency and anticipation. As he reached a secluded corner, he finally unfolded the paper and read its contents. The message was startlingly clear and direct. James had grievously erred by insulting and expelling the family from the restaurant. The note warned that the following day, a man whom James purportedly knew well would contact him to address the repercussions of his actions. But it was the final sentence that truly jolted James. "We reap what we sow, and your harvest day has arrived." These words struck him with chilling finality, sending a wave of cold sweat over his body. The weight of the message sank in, enveloping him in a fog of anxiety and dread. The gravity of his situation became painfully clear. He needed to understand more about this note. Who was the family he had wronged? How did Lisa come to know so much? What were the forthcoming consequences? James found himself in a state of frantic anticipation, desperate for answers to the growing mystery that had turned his night of indulgence into one of profound apprehension. James's curiosity deepened, enveloped in a fog of discomfort and unease. He found himself teetering on the edge of an abyss, plagued by a gnawing fear of the consequences his actions might unleash. Across the bar, Lisa's eyes were fixed on him with a calculating sharpness. She had carefully timed her approach, waiting for the precise moment to deliver the note to James. She intended to end her shift immediately after this strategic delivery. Her plan was deliberately sparse in detail, designed to leave James increasingly anxious and unsettled. This was Lisa's subtle act of retribution, a small yet significant revenge for the numerous offenses and intimidation James had inflicted upon others. As the night wore on, James was haunted by shadows of unease, his mind consumed by thoughts of the possible repercussions of his actions. The abusive customer was about to face the harsh reality of his behavior. Lisa's strategy of leaving James to grapple with the situation alone was proving effective. That night, James was a mere shadow of his usual self, absorbed in brooding thoughts and visibly shaken. His guests, bewildered and intrigued, exchanged whispers, speculating about whether something supernatural might have unsettled him. The sudden shift in his demeanor left everyone in a state of perplexed curiosity. The lively atmosphere that James and his friends had once brought to the restaurant was now replaced by an air of silent intrigue and mystery. It was as though the echoes of his actions had come back to teach him a harsh lesson. From her vantage point across the street, Lisa watched with a satisfied smile as her meticulously crafted plan unfolded. Disrupting James's and his friends' evening had been a masterstroke, effectively diverting his attention and shattering his night of indulgence. In the aftermath, James found himself reflecting on the night's events with bewilderment. How had something that had begun so splendidly deteriorated into this? The restaurant, familiar with his outlandish behavior, seemed to have been unsettled by the presence of an ordinary family. As he pondered, he nearly forgot to settle the bill, a rare oversight for someone of his usual meticulousness. Even more surprising was his failure to leave a tip, a stark deviation from his well-known pattern of generous gratuity. The staff, whose tolerance for his presence had been precariously held together by James's customary largesse, was now on edge. That night, as he lay in bed, James was adrift in a sea of doubt and confusion. Who were those people? Was the note a genuine threat or merely a cruel prank? Should he be genuinely concerned? These questions swirled in his mind, unanswered and unrelenting, leaving him restless and agitated. His usual confidence and control had been replaced by a storm of uncertainty and anxiety. Sleep, which usually came easily to him, was elusive. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, a chaotic storm of recent events that offered no respite. James couldn't close his eyes for a single minute, consumed by restless thoughts that kept him awake throughout the night. The prospect of the unknown and the weight of his actions weighed heavily on him, leaving him to ponder who might call him the next day and what repercussions might follow his thoughtless decisions. Normally, James prided himself on his ability to control his environment with near-perfect precision, orchestrating every detail of his life with meticulous care. But that night was different. The usual calm he wielded over his circumstances was replaced by a gnawing sense of unease. As the sun rose and James found himself in his office, the tension from the previous night clung to him like a shroud. He fought to focus on his work, desperately trying to push away the oppressive anxiety that lurked just beneath the surface. Despite his best efforts, he couldn't shake the constant urge to check his phone, each glance fueled by the fear of what might come next. The anticipation of who would call and what news that call would bring became nearly unbearable, manifesting as a heavy, palpable silence in the office. Hours dragged on with a slow, torturous pace, each phone notification piercing the silence with a jarring intensity. The relentless anxiety made it almost impossible for James to concentrate, his mind trapped in a cycle of dread and speculation. Then, late in the afternoon, as James tried to distract himself by reading a news article, the sound of his phone jolted him back to reality. He cast a tense, apprehensive glance at the screen. Was this the call he had been anxiously awaiting? To his surprise, the number displayed was one he recognized immediately. It was from Carter Industries, a prominent partner and major client known for their substantial monthly purchases of auto parts exceeding $1 million. James had anticipated this call would be just another routine business matter, a chance to seal another successful deal. For him, such calls were part of the daily grind, routine steps in his path to success. However, James was unprepared for the reality that this call would be anything but ordinary. It was about to bring him face to face with the very consequences of his actions. With a forced sense of enthusiasm, James answered the call. His initial eagerness quickly gave way to surprise as the voice on the other end introduced itself as Robert, the owner of Carter Industries. Robert was summoning James to a meeting in the conference room, an unusual request, as most of their interactions were typically handled through phone calls or emails. The unexpected nature of the invitation piqued James's curiosity, and he found himself questioning the purpose of this face-to-face meeting. Robert's voice carried a mysterious tone, emphasizing the importance of discussing matters in person. Intrigued and apprehensive, James complied with the request, bracing himself for the conversation ahead. The meeting held the promise of uncovering the consequences he had feared, and, in that moment, James knew he was about to confront the full impact of his actions. Upon stepping into the conference room, James was greeted by an unexpected and intriguing scene. Partners from his own company, along with representatives from the renowned Carter Industries, were already assembled and gathered around the large conference table. The air was thick with anticipation, a palpable sense of significance permeating the room. As James made his entrance, he was met by Robert, who greeted him with a firm handshake and a penetrating gaze that seemed to search his soul. In that brief moment of contact, a flash of recognition illuminated James's mind. He was suddenly reminded of the strange familiarity he had experienced when he had locked eyes with a mysterious man at a restaurant days before. Although Robert was not the same man from the restaurant, there was something unsettlingly similar in his gaze. It rekindled that enigmatic sensation James had felt that day, the intriguing and almost eerie feeling that, in some inexplicable way, he already knew this person. For a brief moment, James's heart froze, invaded by a paralyzing doubt. Could Robert have any connection with the family he had insulted the night before? He tried to mask his apprehension, maintaining his usual arrogant demeanor, but it was evident in his discomfort and internal worry. With an air of solemnity, Robert began his speech, expressing gratitude for everyone's presence. He knew that what he was about to announce would be a watershed moment, a crucial decision that, although necessary, would have far-reaching consequences for many innocents. The tension was palpable in the air as he prepared to reveal the significant announcement. With a firm and unwavering voice, Robert declared that this day marked a pivotal turning point for Carter Industries. He announced, with a mix of determination and sorrow, that from this moment forward, all ties and contracts with James's company would be definitively severed. Robert's words echoed through the room, leaving a trail of surprise and disbelief. The faces of those present reflected a mix of shock and confusion, and among them, James stood out. His perplexed expression was the portrait of total surprise, a mixture of disbelief, and a visible effort to grasp the magnitude of what had just been announced. The silence that followed was heavy, a prelude to unexpected and unprecedented changes. Robert, maintaining his unshakable firmness, continued his speech. He emphasized that Carter Industries would never condone attitudes of disrespect and humiliation. He declared with a conviction that resonated throughout the room that, effective immediately, all business relations with James's company were terminated. The reasons were clear. James had revealed himself to be an arrogant, disrespectful, and immature individual, belittling and humiliating everyone around him. Robert reinforced that financial success should never outweigh fundamental human values like respect and empathy. He stressed that every person, regardless of their social class, deserves respect and dignity. Nothing justifies humiliating someone for their appearance or social status. James, overwhelmed by a wave of embarrassment, felt his face grow increasingly red. Words escaped him as he stood there, the piercing, judgmental eyes of everyone in the room fixed on him, intensifying his discomfort. The room, once a stage for business, had now become the setting for a dramatic and unforgettable twist. Robert concluded his speech with a decisive announcement. His company would now make its future purchases from a small local industry renowned for its unwavering dedication to humanitarian causes. This decision was not just a strategic business change, it was a strong ethical and human positioning. Robert was marking a new era where values and integrity would shape the future of his company, inspiring everyone around with his courageous and conscious choice. James, in his arrogance, could never have imagined the whirlwind of consequences that would follow his disdainful behavior in the restaurant. Unbeknownst to him, the family he had humiliated included Thomas, Robert's brother. The resemblance between the brothers explained the recognition James couldn't decipher. The early return of Robert's family had sparked curiosity and concern among those who knew them, as they arrived back from dinner much sooner than expected. It was then that Thomas revealed the humiliating incident at the restaurant, describing how they were disrespected and mistreated. While James remained oblivious to the true identity of the family he had disparaged, Thomas was fully aware of who James was, known for his fortune and fame. Upon discovering that the perpetrator of the humiliation was James, Robert made a drastic and immediate decision to cut all ties with James's company, causing a colossal loss of over $1 million a month. This bold move not only reflected Robert's commitment to standing up for his family's honor, but also demonstrated his willingness to prioritize ethical considerations over financial gain. The unexpected turn of events might have been the shock necessary for James to start rethinking his attitudes and learning to value humility, a costly lesson, but perhaps the only one capable of changing the perspective of a man accustomed to buying everything except respect and dignity. As for the mysterious note, it was nothing more than a clever plan by the waitress herself. Frustrated by James's arrogance and disrespectful behavior, she intended only to disrupt his night, causing him tension and concern with a false threat. However, she couldn't have imagined that by a twist of fate, life was already weaving a much more complex plot to teach James a harsh lesson. The news of the incident resonated beyond the city, causing other customers to stop buying products from James's company and boycotting his entire business. After 6 months of incalculable loss to James's company, with partners divesting their shares, the company began to fail. On the other hand, Robert's company emerged as a beacon of integrity and courage. His valiant act not only elevated his reputation, but also boosted his profits and opened new job opportunities, bringing hope and prosperity to many. This turn of events underscored the power of ethical leadership and the profound impact that one individual's actions can have on an entire community. Meanwhile, the haughty James found himself perpetually deprived of the financial resources needed to revisit his once beloved restaurant. In the past, he would stride in with an air of superiority, making his presence felt by all who dined there. Now, with James's absence, the restaurant's patrons could finally enjoy their meals in an atmosphere of tranquility, unperturbed by the unsettling aura of the once arrogant ex-millionaire. The adage "you reap what you sow" resonated deeply in James's life story. Life, with its poetic sense of justice, had exacted a toll on his previous actions, etching a lasting lesson into his destiny. James's decline was not merely a tale of financial ruin, but a profound reminder that the way one conducts oneself can significantly influence their future. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching this intriguing story unfold. We hope it has offered you some profound insights and valuable lessons. The journey of James and the consequences he faced serve as a powerful reminder of how our actions and attitudes shape our future. So what have you learned from this story? We're interested to know how this narrative has impacted you. Share with us one key takeaway you've gathered and how you plan to incorporate this lesson into your life moving forward. Your reflections could inspire others and foster meaningful conversations in our community. If you found this video engaging and valuable, please let us know by leaving your comment below. Don't forget to like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. By doing so, you'll be helping us build a larger community dedicated to sharing inspiring stories and valuable insights. Your support makes all the difference. We look forward to connecting with you again soon. Until next time, take care and keep growing.